The ayes are 62, the nays are 36. Senate Bill 1, as amended, is passed.
The Keystone Pipeline legislation will wind up on President Obama's desk soon. The president has already said it dies right there on his desk. So as the American people begin to wonder if this is a colossal waste of time, a new report is out that links Russian dictator Vladimir Putin to environmentalist groups seeking to block the pipeline and other forms of oil and gas production. This, among other things, put on the conspiracy hats, and let's dig in. Welcome to MidPoint. Former White House energy advisor and principal for the Rafuse Organization, Dr. Jack Rafuse joins us today. Doctor, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
We did want to talk about it. We are going to get to the Keystone legislation itself, but I wanted to get your take on this because this report is out from the Environmental Policy Alliance with a new report saying that they have found tens of millions of dollars from Russian interests going through a dark company in Bermuda through environmental bundlers, including the Sea Change Foundation, into major lobbying organizations in America, including the Sierra Club, the Natural Resources Defense Council, and the League of Conservation Voters. In other words, saying that Vladimir Putin is funding environmental groups to block U.S. oil and gas production. Your reaction?
Well, I think this is pretty much of an astounding thing. I have never heard of this, although it has been the case for the last several years that the Russians have very much been arguing the environmental case on this. And of course, they have to argue any case they can to strengthen their hand. You know, geopolitically, it's much to their advantage if we don't have more oil and gas. So, but I've never heard that Putin is actually handing these dollars over to these groups, all of whom we know about and are familiar with.
It's always interesting.
Shocking.
Because we always find conspiracy theories a little bit everywhere. So I wanted to get your take on
Indeed.
that. But let's dig into the pipeline itself. The pipeline is going to produce basic energy, which can be exported around the world. We have liquid natural gas here in America that we're looking to export around the world. Isn't it fair to say that these things can be used geopolitically, of course, to push somebody like Putin or somebody else back into a corner? Because if they're not making money off their energy, we're helping basically to put a little onus on them and a little finger on them.
Absolutely right. The ones who are being damaged to some extent right now around the world by the dip in gasoline prices, for example, and oil prices, and to a lesser extent so far in natural gas prices, are Russia, Ecuador, and Iran. And of course, they all hate us. So this is an awful thing for them.
What about those people, and again, let's get back to one of my initial points here, where people say that the Keystone Pipeline, the opponents say, it's been a complete waste of time and effort. What's your take?
I think those people are taking a look at things as if they were the commercial judges of this, the companies that want to build it, and they are trying to decide for those companies what would be economic and in the interest of those companies. I think that is an argument you can just kind of brush aside.
Why then do they continue to bring this up? Because frankly, we talk about the jobs it could be. Even though they're temporary jobs, it still is at a time where America needs the work, and it still is at a time where there will be some permanent jobs there. It would seem to make sense.
Of course it would. It's just like all of the $478 billion worth of infrastructure projects are what kind of jobs? Temporary. That's what road building is, bridge building, bridge painting. All of those things are temporary jobs. Yet at the same time, they make jobs for factories, for pipeline companies, for bridge builders, for everybody. And so that is an insane argument, but it's one that people basically have just moved from one argument to another. If you begin to point out the fallacies of one, they say, well, what about this? What about that? And you just kind of keep moving along that way. It's a good old debating strategy, and that's what it is.
I got about 30 seconds left. Is Keystone one of those things that you've seen come around the Beltway that you just can't believe how many different excuses there are back and forth? Because it really does seem to be the great ping pong ball.
It really is. I cannot figure out why or how it became such a political football, but it certainly did.
And we're going to wait and see what happens because, oh, by the way, what would you say if the president does indeed go through with his idea to veto it?
That wouldn't be a surprise either, and he still wouldn't have come up with any good reasons for doing it.
There you go. That's what a lot of people will say. The good reasons still have to be there. Dr. Jack Rafuse, thank you so much for spending a couple of moments with it. We'll look forward to doing it again.
Thank you very much, Ed. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. A stop at the Tuesday water cooler is next, and Telling It Like It Is later deals with the biggest sap the NFL has ever known. It's all coming up right here on MidPoint.